The rise of financial technology, the so-called Fintech, has been meteoric. Financial institutions often form the vanguard of innovation, be it new products, moving into new markets, or creating new business models. Get insights on what is driving the fintech boom and what are key trends for the future of fintech. Catch the wave of current and future trends of online banking, insurance, lending, and payment providers.
A very warm welcome from the stage in Vienna, the stage of the Brutkasten. My name is Martin Pacher and I have the honor to moderate today's panel on the latest developments in the fintech sector. We are going now deep into the question how COVID-19, how this crisis is changing the fintech industry and also cryptocurrency markets. And we're gonna discuss this topic with 4 experts I want to introduce right now. First of all, Max Schausberger from Raiffeisenbank International. He's Managing Director of Elevator Ventures. Elevator Ventures is the corporate venture capital identity of the Raiffeisenbank International and is investing in early stage fintechs in the CEE region. Hello, Max.
Hi, thank you.
Nice to have you here. Next in the round is Susanne Chishti from the Fintech Circle. She is CEO of the Fintech Circle. It's Europe's first angel network focusing on fintechs. And you are also the author of the bestseller, The Fintech Book, which was translated into 10 languages and sold across 107 countries. Hello.
Hello, good afternoon. Very nice to be with you guys.
Good afternoon. Next is Filip Genov. He's CEO of the Bulgarian fintech F27 and has more than 25 years international expertise in the banking sector. Hello, Filip.
Hello, nice to be with you.
And last but not least, Odelia Torteman from Deloitte, Israel. She is also an expert on cryptocurrency, crypto markets. A warm welcome.
Pleasure to be here. Good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon.
It is time to rethink and to realign. Learn and get inspired. Prepare your questions and enjoy insightful Podim DX panel.
Max, maybe as you're also here in Vienna, I want to start with you. Maybe you can tell us more about Elevator Ventures. So what's your investment focus and with which fintechs you are working right now at the moment?
Yes, a very warm welcome from my side as well. Elevator Ventures, as you rightly said, is the corporate venture capital arm of Raiffeisenbank International. And as Raiffeisen is for the last years already very closely and heavily working with fintechs, it was a natural next step for us also here to invest into fintechs. Elevator Ventures is a Series A fintech investor. We are investing in everything connected with fintech, but also all the enabling technologies around it. So also our today's topic around blockchain, cryptocurrencies, etc., is a topic. RegTech and other supporting technologies of banking. We see a huge potential especially in Central and Eastern Europe through our 13 banks. There we are very well connected to the local startup and fintech ecosystems. And we want here really to leverage also the resources and the network of RBI to be a strong growth venture capital partner as Elevator Ventures.
Thank you very much, Max. Before I hand over to Filip from F27, I also want to encourage the community, if you have questions, just write them down and we will collect them and answer them in the end of this panel discussion. But now I want to hand over to Filip. Maybe you can also introduce yourself, your experience in the banking sector, and especially F27.
Thank you so much. I will be short because I'm eager to start the discussion, but in a brief, I've spent almost the last 30 years of my life in the area of finance across most of the markets in Europe. In my previous lifetime, I was doing similar job to Max for UniCredit. And that's a fantastic journey for a bank to change itself and disrupt itself through the fintech community. F27 as such is a digital alliance. We create products, we create companies. We have just, despite the COVID, we have launched our second investment fund, and we are right now heavily investing in new companies and in projects. And for me, despite the terrible human cost of this situation, exactly for the fintech industry, it's a unique period. Fantastic for investment, fantastic to change the industry. Thank you. Let's move on.
Thank you very much. We just want to know your backgrounds. Susanne, maybe you can also give us a short introduction about the Fintech Circle.
Of course. So my name is Susanne Chishti. I'm initially from Austria, from Vienna, and I came to London more than 20 years ago, working in banking all my professional career. And then in 2014, I left banking to launch Fintech Circle. And Fintech Circle is a global fintech network of more than 130,000 people. And what we do are normally three things. On one side, we invest in fintech startups. So we are working with the best fintech companies who raise funding, early stage seed capital. And our goal as investors is to provide the most smart capital available, so in terms of contacts, knowledge, expertise, to help small startup entrepreneurs to not only get the money, but also know how to spend it wisely. I think which is really important, at early stage investing. The second thing, what we've focused on is education. So the Fintech Circle Institute, we published various books. You mentioned kindly the first one, the Fintech book. Our latest one, which just came out last week, is focused on artificial intelligence in finance. So how is AI used across all financial services partners, from banks to insurance companies to asset managers, and also across the value chain, so from the front office to the middle to the back office. How is AI, machine learning, how can it be used to inspire people, how they can implement AI in their daily operations. And the third thing of what we do is run courses. So we're running fintech masterclasses, fintech courses, and they are often targeted at people in banking, who all know that their industry is changing, financial services is changing, but they would like to know how they will be impacted in their personal careers and what changes, what benefits they can gain by working with fintech companies to modernize their institutions. So that's our focus. And everybody who joins us, you are very welcome also to join Fintech Circle online. Also follow us on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on Instagram. So we are across all social media channels where we publish daily news on fintech topics and fintech trends as well.
Thank you very much. I want to hand over to Odelia. Odelia, maybe you can introduce yourself, and we want to go now into in this discussion. I also want to ask you and start the question: how is the fintech industry right now shaped by the crisis?
Okay. So first of all, I'll introduce myself. Like you said, my name is Odelia Torteman, and I'm leading the fintech stream for Deloitte Israel under our financial service technology consulting arm. I've been working with enterprise innovation and technology for the past 6 years. And what we do is basically supports financial institutions all around the world within the digital transformation efforts, everything that basically relates to how digital and technology can help them accomplish their business aspirations. So from hardcore IT legacy core transformation to front-end designing next generation digital architecture, supporting all kinds of innovation models for multinationals that would like to arrive to Israel and to learn from what's going on here, from investment, basically facilitating to assisting within technology scouting, engagement, and implementation. That's in a nutshell. And regarding your question, so as you know, Israel is an amazing, amazing hub for fintech innovation, literally stands in one line with London, Singapore, and others. What we are seeing nowadays is, I think, the fintech industry, I believe that the COVID has basically accelerated many processes that would have happened naturally as well. Whether we're speaking about the core transformation of banks, the requirement to move to more agile, I would say, architecture, wow, microservices-based, API-based, codeless approach, I think from one hand. So a lot of solutions that are targeting these areas for sure will be very relevant. Also, I think that the payment industry will change also dramatically because of this crisis, because of the fact that many of our interaction within different service providers and vendors are now being basically held digitally. We're seeing also a lot of increase on that. Regarding startups, what we're seeing is that indeed cycles may be a bit slower nowadays in terms of both sales and investment. But I think that for sure the COVID, in the end, after we will be able to surpass what we're currently seeing within this bump, I think that it will do a lot of good for fintech in general.
May I hand over also to Filip? Filip, you share also this point of view that there is something going on right now during the crisis in the fintech sector, and maybe you can elaborate your point of view here.
Gladly. First thing, I agree with the other distinguished panelists, but I tend to disagree on one point. Startups, those who are in the marketplaces and those who are in a little bit disruptive area, they are facing quite difficult times, and the horizon is not good for most of them. But for those who are playing in the cooperative game, especially with the bigger financial institutions, I would like here to ask Max a couple of questions in a minute. For them, there is mostly good news, especially for those who are dealing with data science, modeling, mobile technologies, and everything that is digitalization. Now we will be seeing, and we call it the end of stupid banking, because it's linked to a couple of things. First, banks need to change their models, and they are changing models, but it will accelerate in the area of providing distant products and services, which means digital identification, everything that is secure, remote, etc. The other thing is modeling and risk assessment. If you look at what the systematic banks all over the world are doing, there are 6 measures and they're totally the same as they are in the previous crisis and the one before, and maybe since banking exists. Cut new deals, focus on existing clients, torture internal sales force and the risk people to do updates, re-updates, monitorings, and so on, 900% manually. Max, don't smile, it's like that, you know it. And this is putting a lot of pressure on the society in the area first of recovery, but then also on fairness. And for me, this is good because it's going to push incumbents to improve things that otherwise they will be doing for years. Stop me at some moment because I can go forever, but these technologies, great news, great news. I'm in this business since 1993. This is the best time ever to invest and to create, but in the cooperative game. I'm done for a moment.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. Thank you very much. So I will hand over to Max because maybe Max should get some room to answer.
Yes, thank you, and happy to answer these strong arguments from Filip. I know you always have some strong arguments and thoughts on the banking industry, and I agree with most of it. And this is also the reason why I think investing in fintechs, being a fintech at the moment, bears huge chances. Especially what Filip just described here, helping and transforming banks and established institutions. Digital first is now on the agenda of every board member and every every bank on top. I think this is a real chance for all the fintechs that have been switching from merely providing some UX UI solutions to transforming a real banking business, to transform it and to also make it more efficient. Everything that goes in this direction, I think, has a very good future ahead. We, as a bank, of course, are looking at various new technologies that are enabling this. Filip spoke about digital identity, everything that has to do with digital onboarding. I guess over the last 7 weeks, a lot of people who would never thought that they would open a bank account via digital channel were actually forced to do it because it was the only way how you can do it. A lot of people who didn't ever do a video call did it for the first time in their life. This has deep impact on what customer expects, also how large established corporates are actually dealing with them as customers. And here, as all the banks have to speed up their processes, and it's I think in every bank's decision, do I need to build everything on my own, or can I rely on a company that is more innovative and that we can partner with? And in a world of open banking, in a world of standardized APIs and new technologies, ever faster developing customer demands, I think more and more banks will actually find the answer in partnering instead of building everything on their own.
Thank you very much, Max. You brought in a really important point, the consumer habits as well, how they are going to change. Maybe I'll gonna hand over this question to Odelia or Susanne. Odelia?
Around the customer. So I think that, like the distinguished panel said before, a lot of the way that people consume services is going to change and has already changed. And I think that this really have accelerated many of the processes that have already started before. I think that the challenge now that banks will have to face, and not only banks, by the way, all enterprise and all service providers, would be around how to basically create the new balance between, you know, on-prem services that are being given in the branch, self-service services, and omni-channel services. And all that needs to basically be orchestrated in a reality where you need to reserve and basically maintain your business continuity from one hand, maintain your cyber resilience from the other, as everything becomes much more digital, and maintain a very, I would say, demanding customer expectation to receive all of those digital services in a very human, I would say, friendly manner. And I think that this is where we will see much more AI technologies entering into phase, much more capabilities that will enable to humanize many of these processes and to make them much more efficient in the coming years.
Thank you very much. I want to hand over to Susanne.
Yes, maybe just to add to what we talked about. I mean, I think during as a result of Corona, coronavirus, the whole lockdown which we are facing now globally, the landscape has changed significantly. So when you think about UBS, as one of the leading private banks worldwide, they issued about 2-3 weeks ago a kind of an investment advice to their investors, where they said, what type of sectors you should invest in and which ones are attractive. And they highlighted fintech as a very attractive sector to be in, which was great to hear. However, when I talk to investors on the ground, lots of investors at the moment if they're sitting on cash, they don't deploy cash at the moment because they wait until the economy further either declines or bottoms up, depending on what views people have, if it's a U-shaped recovery or an L-shaped recovery. So I think realistically, for startups to raise their first round of investment now, it is a very difficult phase. And so the best thing one can do is to try to preserve capital, reduce one's burn rate, monthly costs, and try to keep working if one has a second job, a main job, while one starts a startup, so that you don't burn too much cash until the financial market of investors really opens up again. What we also have seen at more, late stage investors, even, VCs, private equity portfolio managers, they have invested in their existing portfolio companies. So they don't necessarily invest in new companies, but they want to help existing portfolio companies to survive. So that's the context, in which we are operating in. And in terms of, B2C versus B2B, what Filip spoke about, I do agree that B2B, as a fintech focus area, has got lots of potential. And I'm a mentor of the Elevator Lab, with Max myself, and I know that RBI is a great partner, for all fintech companies who want to and who offer B2B solutions. So I think that's a great opportunity to do that. The downside with lots of banks is that the sales cycle is very long. So often it takes 9 months more to get and sell into banks. But of course, with the Elevator Lab, that's reduced. So that's a big advantage of joining it. But otherwise, that's one big downside, versus the B2C sector. And that's coming back to what Olivia said. Here, we just don't know how customers will change long term. I think many of our habits, which we had before coronavirus, we might never come back to them. For example, the online account opening. I think once people open accounts online, they will never go back to an old-fashioned in-person on experience. They will prefer to do online account openings for everything they do. So I think certain things will change forever as a result of this crisis. And I think our companies will have to adopt to that. So handing back to you. And I think I don't know if you can hear me, because I can't hear.
I can hear you perfect.
You can hear me perfect.
The problem
okay.
with the signal, but now it's working
good.
again, so no problem. Perfect. Also you brought in a really interesting point, investments in the fintech sector. Oh, okay, Filip, you have a question?
Susanne, you've said some really great things, but let me, with all my respect, strongly disagree.
No worries.
I'm absolutely happy that UBS are writing this, quite frankly, BS, because, and one of the side effects, due to this virus, all the wannabe investors, institutions, companies, private individuals that were having cash and wondering what to do in their life are out of the game. Positive effect number one. The bubble and the valuation of everybody that was dreaming that he has an, or she is having an idea, and that's 5 million step in valuation, it's out. So we are seeing much better values of companies in which to invest, especially for Eastern Europe. Second, and that's why I'm saying that with all my respect, conventional wisdom is fantastic, but that will get you into the middle of the bell curve. Fintech is a game of outliers. Companies like, and Max knows this one, Eurotrust, brilliant. Now is the time to put money. Now is the time to get the value investor, not those that are cash-rich opportunists. And again, I perfectly understand you. I agree with it. But I would advise everybody that is professional fintech investor not to follow this advice. Going back to the technologies, one very important thing, especially for Eastern Europe, if in the US fintech is driving more or less 90% of the innovations in the economy, in continental Europe it is 40, in Eastern Europe it is 60, and that is why I'm brutally bullish on B2B applications of fintech technologies that can be transformed in other sectors. And we are seeing this. Two of our best companies, which we have been developing scoring and modelings for banks, we are shifting them now to forecasting in energy production. And I can go like this forever, but you see, the crisis is showing the 3 layers of fintech industry. The safe ground, the startups, and the crazy bunch. So you're listening now a little bit of the crazy bunch. And again, back to you guys. I don't want to talk too much.
Just one thing to add. Just one thing to add, one thing you said, which is factually incorrect. So I just wanted to clarify that. So the value investing style has underperformed the growth investing style for the last decades. So growth investors have done much, much better, than value investors. But I think other points you said, I agree with, and I do believe that across all fintech investments, there are opportunities, and across all other startups, there are huge opportunities if they do it correctly. So
you're right. But maybe we are looking from different angles to different numbers. If we go, and I would be happy to maybe have some input from Deloitte, because they were doing some great studies on that by country. From the perspective of the markets in Southeast Europe, it's a little bit different from the perspective in UK, or maybe even Vienna. But that's another story. Maybe we don't need to go there today.
Perfect. Then I want to hand over to Odelia. Maybe you can give us some insights here.
Well, I agree with both. I think that what's maybe important to understand when speaking about this epidemic and crisis is that the impact of this recession is not only targeting the fintech industry, right? So true, valuation have been cut. True, evolution will now bring us to a point where only the strong will survive. But I think, and this is also according to our predictions, obviously, this is something that will be basically valid for all industries. So if we're talking about public companies, if we're speaking about big enterprises, if we're speaking about SMEs, all valuations are going to be cut. In a sense, I agree 100% with Filip. It will bring order, so to speak, to the world, unfortunately, with a very big economic price from both individual and businesses. But from the other hand, it will also bring lots of business opportunities with regards to M&As, with regards to big players acquiring younger players, probably at an earlier stage than they would have done otherwise so. But from the third perspective, it would also for sure make life for the early stage companies much more difficult, because investors will probably be much more hesitating to start their investments that are at a greater risk, and will probably choose to continue to later stages of investments.
Thank
Maybe
you
if I can
add
some thoughts on it as well. I think as always, the truth would be somewhere in the middle. And the investors are at the moment really refocusing on what they are looking, if they look at a company to invest in. A lot of companies over the last years have been immensely successful by really taking the money of one round after the other, spending it heavily on massive growth, meeting their growth projections as well. And on the road to these growth projections, forgot a bit about setting up proper organizational structures, setting up the management capabilities to react on crises like we have it right now. Also to really produce unit economics that are healthy. And I think these deficiencies are in such a crisis shown brutally, and you see it with some of the large startups that now face these the results of these issues, and also see their valuation drop. On the other hand, it is a huge potential for all founders who have experience with such crises, who can now really prove that they have their own company under control, that they can scale according to the environment that they are facing, and who have their cost basis under control. And what we hear and see from different companies is that previously it was growth before runway. At the moment it turned around and it's actually runway before growth. This will change maybe again, this very strong focus on runway, but what will not change is this this more focused evaluation of the startups by venture capital funds. That's what I'm sure of.
Mm-hmm. Max, maybe one question for Elevator Ventures. Are you right now on hold with investments in fintechs, or how is the situation?
Not at all. We, of course, as I think all investors in the first few weeks of the crisis were very much occupied by supporting our portfolio companies. There were a lot of contingency measures to be implemented. There was a lot of advice also and discussions between us, the portfolio companies, other investors. So there was not much focus on new investments in the first few weeks, but we of course continue to speak to especially those companies that we have been in contact already. And I'm really happy that these events like Podim are happening, that we as a society managed to meet each other even in these times without physical presence. So also these new leads can be generated, new contacts can be established. And I think Susanne also mentioned it. I think these very clear contact persons and inroads into large organizations for startups are becoming more and more important, because a coincidental meeting somewhere at the moment is unlikely. And I think here it is important to have clear contact persons, to be proactive in communicating to companies, and using events like the Podim to also create virtually new leads.
Thank you very much, Max. I want to come up with a new topic on crypto markets, and also ask Odelia, because you're also expert on cryptocurrency. How is the situation right now? How is COVID-19 and the crisis changing these markets?
Sorry, was on mute. Yes, so I've been dealing substantially with crypto, and also started my PhD last year around the central bank digital currency and monetary policy. I think that what we're seeing with the crypto market has been quite interesting. I mean, at the beginning of this crisis, we have seen a very big decline within the prices of crypto, which many were very, happy from the outside to look at it and to mention that this is an example of why cryptocurrencies will not be able to serve as a solid asset and as a unit of account due to the high volatility of it. And this is in contradictory to what we've seen with all the other governments and central banks around the world, who has actively intervened in order to basically, balance the currencies using monetary policy. But afterwards, as the crisis evolved, we've seen that Bitcoin prices basically came up again, not only crypto, but cryptocurrencies market in general. And I think that an interesting phenomena that we've seen, which probably justified the value, the philosophy behind Bitcoin, I would say, is that many countries where the political situation, where the economical situation suffers from quite substantial instability, are basically acquiring much more Bitcoins than before. Countries like Argentina, Chile, even Morocco and others have seen substantial peaks within their volumes of purchasing. And I think this serves and show us how basically currencies like the Bitcoin can serve as the unit in account within certain economies, within certain situations that might be, used in order to save the people and the citizens from the everlasting inflation that we're seeing there. I think that the COVID will probably, I believe personally that the era of digital cash and digital currency is upon us. Whether if we're speaking about currencies, utility tokens that are being issued for specific industry usage, or whether we're speaking about taking it to the next stage of a central bank digital currency or more centralized organizational cryptocurrencies. I absolutely feel that the fact that the whole payment scene has basically changed even before the COVID, and the COVID has only accelerated this change further, will eventually support the crypto market on a wider sense, even if we're speaking about regulation, if we're speaking about enterprise that are entering the game, and even we're speaking about how institutional are entering to this place, because I believe that in the end, many assets will become tokenized in the coming years in order to basically preserve their liquidity.
Okay, perfect. Maybe we have also some other aspect, and Filip, do you share like this opinion?
Yes, with one thing, I liked especially the last sentence of Odelia. For sure, crypto is coming, but the thing that is, it's like a little river compared to a large tsunami if we start talking about tokenization of assets and its application into everything from supply chain finance to normal mortgage lending. And one of the things that is also hugely accelerating due to the crisis is this one. I'm absolutely happy that a couple of central banks across Europe are already having work groups on that. And for me, this is the big thing there.
Good, I agree.
And also from our side and from a bank perspective, I think there is no bank that has not yet trialed something, some more, some less. And what I think everyone agrees on is that especially the tokenization of assets, the blockchain as an enabling technology will transform and help to get more efficient for all the banks. We are partnering also here with actually a fintech. It's called Billion. We are creating an own stable coin here to see if and how we as a banking group can actually even only within us, be more efficient based on such a stable coin. And as a next step, of course, this would be able also and usable also with other banks. But here I agree also with Filip. It is very important that the public authorities, central banks are actually taking steps to set here some standards, to also clarify regulatory open questions, because banks, of course, can only move within these regulatory standards. And as long as something is unclear from this point of view, it cannot find the way to the mass market. And I think that there is a lot of potential in this technology. And so this cooperation between the private sector, so being the banks, the fintechs, and the public sector, on the other hand, the central banks, the European Commission, and the governments in our region, this is super important. And here again, it shows that the technology that is developed within fintech, within the startup ecosystem, is developing so fastly that it's actually super important that the banks and the public authorities are very, very close to this to be able to keep up, not with a delay of maybe 5 years, but maybe only with a delay of 2 years.
I'd like to comment on actually. I want to agree. I want to agree 100% with Max, and I think that maybe the most prominent thing that we've saw coming from the COVID is the collaboration between both government and banks, central banks, and the private sector. I mean, the fact that banks partner with governments and basically enable them to provide unprecedented financial assistance to all kinds of people that got affected by this crisis, and taking it towards the world of a central bank digital currency, it basically pushes us much further towards collaboration. Because even if the central bank will issue its own digital currency, it will still basically require to be working jointly with the commercial banks as well. So I think that what we've learned from this pandemic is the fact that all entities must work together in a very orchestrated way in order to A, maintain business continuity, and B, make sure that indeed the economy continues to follow suit and to rise steadily.
And I also would like to add, that I think it's the best time ever actually to be an entrepreneur now, because it's very good to build up your team. You can get, good team members at lower costs, because lots of people will have, left their jobs. So it's a very nice way of building startup teams and fintech teams, and really of changing the world and changing financial services. So I think often, when we look down at the global financial crisis, 11 years ago, some of the best companies were started then. So it was, from Instagram to Dropbox to very large names we are all familiar with. So I think that's what we should keep in mind, that, although investing or funding or getting investments might be taking longer now, but the opportunities are unlimited. And it's a great time to be in the sector. So congratulations to all fintech entrepreneurs who are watching us.
Perfect. Now I want to hand over to Filip. He wanted to mention something.
Yes, I want to build on what Max started, and then Odelia very, very well continued on that. We have been talking about ecosystem, and this is a nice cliche, but now the next stage is digital alliance. And this is especially true about anything that deals with transactions, payments, crypto, tokenization. On one hand, very bad news for disruption startups, because quite frankly, in this game, technology is almost irrelevant. Not more than 10% of the success. We have compliance, industrial application, law, and so on and so forth, and then we have the regulators. And this is, by the way, one of very important things, looking at each and every country. If a country have not built their own RegTech sandbox until the end of 2020, they will be too late for the next stage of developments. And that's why digital alliance, because on one hand, a bank cannot run ahead of regulations. Regulations cannot self-invent themselves. Startups are lost before they have entered this battleground. So the only way to combine this is a sandbox. And I'm happy that a number of countries around are already doing this. And this is it. Digital alliance for me is the next game. Susanne, you are very right. Fantastic time to be entrepreneur, but you need to be very careful where you enter.
Thank you very much. Sandbox is a really important topic as well if it comes to fintech development. How you perceive like the current situation in Europe compared to the States or Asia with sandbox models and also the policy framework?
I mean, when I look at the UK, the UK launched the first regulatory sandbox. The FCA did, a few years ago. And it was hugely successful because it helped fintech companies to understand the regulatory framework. It helped them to also understand if they need to be regulated or not, because many don't actually need to be regulated. And equally, it helped the regulator to get up to speed to learn. And since the FCA launched the regulatory sandbox, we've seen lots of other, countries join and jump ship. And I've spoken to the Austrian regulator, and they're also thinking about, launching a regulatory sandbox. And I think it was beginning of the year discussed in Parliament. I don't know, maybe you know even better what the current status is of this regulatory sandbox. But I would wish for Austria as well that we would launch that, because it would be a hugely beneficial, for the Austrian fintech ecosystem and for any other countries who don't have it yet. So I totally agree that that's a very supportive measure.
Maybe to answer your question, Susanne. So to my knowledge, the current government still wants to implement here in Austria this sandbox. And we see in various countries, also in Central and Eastern Europe, these are already established. And these countries have, of course, an advantage to promote their location as a hub for fintech. And I think all the governments actually realize this, or most of them, and that they can only ensure a vivid ecosystem in their country if also from a regulatory perspective they are supporting. We see a lot of programs of governments that are actually helping with COVID, that should also support startups. I think all those reactions are actually signs that the governments are really pushing for it. They want to be in attractive and establish attractive locations for startups to be established. And this again is a huge chance now for fintech founders. So choose wisely the country where you want to found. Where are banks that are open for cooperation? Where are governments in place that acknowledge how important fintech is? And where are VCs and where is VC money located that can support you, especially in the growth phase?
Thank you very much, Max, for providing us these insights for Austria here, also for our international Podim community. Filip, you wanted to mention something.
Yes, I'm extremely biased when we talk about sandboxes because I have the honor and the privilege to be Secretary General of the Bulgarian RegTech Sandbox. And it took us 3 years to put together the Central Bank, Ministry of Finance, Financial Supervision Commission, State Agency for Electronic Government, and Personal Data Protection Commission in one cooperative environment. We did it, but there are differences if we talk about, let's say, sandboxes in UK and Singapore and Hong Kong, and sandboxes that are in Eastern Europe. And this is the so-called bottom-up stuff, because surprisingly also for us, our client number one is the Prime Minister, who came and said, look, what needs to be done by the technical community, entrepreneurs, investments, and so on, in order to shift this country from here to here. And right now, this is bubbling, and I'm seeing something similar. We are helping our friends in Romania launch something like that. And this is going to be huge for our region. And again, I'm very strong patriot of Southeast Europe, but this is one of the best tools, not only to help entrepreneurs, but also to help the entire economy move forward.
Thank you very much, Filip. Unfortunately, we are already coming to an end, so we have to sum up. And I would like to ask the question, what are the biggest challenges for fintechs right now in this COVID crisis? So maybe you can also give us a short sum up. And I would like to start with Odelia. Please turn on your mic.
Good idea. I think that the main challenges for fintech startups will probably depend on which stage of their development as a company they are. Like I've mentioned before, I think that for early stage company, it will be probably harder. I agree with Filip. I think that for B2C companies, it will probably be a bit harder nowadays to start either the operation or get into scale. I think that companies that are targeting everything around authentication, identification, digital identity, smarter payments, I think that we will see a huge leap forward in terms of digital identity solutions, because in today's world, everything becomes much more digital. Almost all of your activity is being done like that. So I think we will see a lot more solutions around that, which goes hand in hand with, I think, a very big emphasis on cybersecurity for all kinds of, both for enterprise as well as for consumers, I think nowadays. But in the end, I absolutely think that 2020 was a very good year for fintech, and despite the huge crisis we've experienced with its really very heavy, circumstances which you haven't yet saw where will they lead us. But I'm absolutely sure this year was a positive year, and I'm really looking forward to see 2021.
Thank you very much for sharing your insights. I want to hand over to Susanne for your last statement and biggest challenges.
Yes, I would say, in the past, it was possible to grow a fintech company just with investor money without ever becoming profitable and just, still being loss-making, gaining market share. I think going forward, people and investors will look much more on a path to profitability and at unit economics. Does the whole business model make sense? Will it become more profitable the more we scale up the business? And so that's where I think more fintech companies will spend more time on to really review their business, their financial models, to see, and they should do that, to see how can we turn our client segments profitable, how can we turn our products profitable over time, and how can we compete and survive so that we can actually, successfully reinvest the money we earn and not completely rely on external funding, because this gives you much more freedom and much more flexibility long term. So that's, I think, what will be one focus going forward.
Thank you very much. Filip, last statement from your side on the biggest challenges for fintechs.
I concur to what's been said, but again, challenge number one, growth. Challenge number two, profitability.
Thank you very much. That was really short and clear. And last but not least, Max in our studio in Vienna.
Yes, a lot has been said and all is true. I agree. I guess one major challenge that the fintech founders and the management are facing right now, they have to deliver and present a vision for sustainable growth over the next years. They have to present it not only to themselves, not only to us as investors, they have to present it to their employees and to their customers as well. This probably has changed, and with everything that has been said on top, looking forward and transforming or adapting your vision to what is at the moment happening worldwide will then make you again come on the right path of success, of growth, of profitability, and will, I am sure, motivate not only your team, not only yourself, but also your investors and your customers.
Max, thank you very much. Thank you very much to the audience and also the panel. Super interesting learnings and insights. We could have much more time to have a further discussion, but unfortunately, time is already over. And now we're going to play a short video and yeah, see you soon.